Yesterday we had looked at the proposed solution. Now let's model this and understand the requirements in much more detail. And since we are going to use UML, it's better to use a tool so that we can keep working on the model. On paper, it would be quite difficult. So I'm going to use Enterprise Architect. You can use any tool that is available to you. By the way, this is a paid tool. It's a commercial tool. So you can use open source tool. Okay. And here I have created a project, but let me create it once more just to show you. And let me delete this and let's create it again. So save. Right. So now you have something called as a model. Now, any project has various stakeholders, and different stakeholders will be interested in different aspects of the proposed system. So to model these different aspects, we create as view. So let's start off with the use case view, and we don't want to use any of the existing templates. And now let's create a diagram. Now UML diagrams are divided into two types: structural and behavioral. Use case is a behavioral diagram. Now by default, the name of the diagram or any element would be by default the same as the container. So here the container is use case view, so the name of the diagram would also be use case view. You can change it if you want. Now we need the toolbox. So here is the toolbox. Now if you notice, there is something called as an actor and there is something called as a use case. Now what's an actor? An actor is used to represent a role that an entity plays with respect to the system. And what's a use case? In very simple terms, a use case is used to represent the goal of an actor, or in more elaborate terms, a use case is used to represent the sequence of actions performed by the system to provide value to an actor. Okay, so which means we have to identify the actor and the system. Now in a system there might be a number of actors and a number of use cases, so we have to identify these actors and use cases. Now in our proposed solution, who are these actors? Now, at first training manager is going to interact with our system to do something, so that's something let's look at later, but let's focus on the actors first. So when we go through this, we will see that the actors of the system are the training manager, the training executive, let's hide this, the expert, then you have the candidate. What else? Okay, so that's the actors we can immediately identify. So let's have a look at it once more. I think that's it. Okay, now what will be the goals of the training manager? What would he expect from the system? So one of the things that he would expect is to be able to add a subject, make changes to an existing subject. So instead of adding them as two separate use cases, because more or less uh, you will end up with lots of add modify kind of things. So we combine these into a single use case, what are called as CRUD use cases: create, read, update, delete use cases, and we name it as manage subject. Okay, what else? He would also be, and remember all this is coming from this document, he'll specify the objects and who can create questions and answers. So manage the experts. Okay, so this will be the goals of this. So we associate the actor with the respective use cases. Now what will be the goal of the training executive? Again, if we go through the document, we'll realize that he is responsible for scheduling the tests. Schedule tests. And what would be the expert's goal? It will be to manage questions. And finally, what would the candidate expect, or what would be his goal? His goal, of course, would be to pass the tests. But from our system's perspective, the only thing he can expect is to take the test. Okay, so at a high level, this is the actors and use cases. So let's position them so that less space is occupied. Now what we could also do is put a boundary here around the use cases. Remember, actors are outside the boundary of the system and the use cases are part of the scope of the project. Now, remember, it also says that the result has to be communicated to him and the schedule of the test has to be communicated to the candidate. So now, which means how are we going to send that? We are going to send it through email. How? Through some kind of a email system. So are we going to develop that email system? No, we are going to use an existing email system. So which means that has to be represented as an actor. Remember, look at the definition of an actor. And the actor is used to represent a role that an entity plays with respect to the system. I also mentioned an actor can be a human being, a device, and also a system. To be more specific, an external system. Okay, so this would be as part of the schedule test. Now we also should communicate to the candidate the moment the test is completed his results. And naturally, when an expert is added, who is going to be an employee ultimately. So the employee will not know that he has been added as an expert. So again, a communication has to go to him. And while discussing, with that training manager and the training executive, uh, we realize that the training manager really will not know all the employees of the company, and he would not know what subjects they have expertise in. But one thing we come to realize, which they mention, is that they already have a system called HRMS, which is a human resource management system, which contains all the details of the employees. So which means we can, instead of the training manager looking in the HRMS and then doing something in our system, we could make sure that our system in turn communicates to the HRMS to satisfy the actor. So since our system is going to communicate with the HRMS will play a role within our system. So that would be treated as an actor. Now here, if you notice, there are two, very distinctly you can make out two different types of actors, right? These are the actors who are our stakeholders, right? Direct stakeholders, or actors whose goals have to be satisfied. And these are the actors who help our system in satisfying these actors' goals. So these actors are called primary actors and these are called secondary actors. By the way, to the boundary itself, we can give it a name. So we can say online testing system, or to be more precise, online candidate testing system. Right? So that diagram in a nutshell gives us the scope of our project. It tells us what is outside the scope and what is inside the scope. Later on, see, this doesn't mean that these are the only use cases. What I'm saying is, these are the use cases which were very apparent, which we identified. As we go forward, we may discover some additional use cases, or for that matter, we may identify more actors. So in later sessions, we will look at elaborating it further, because this diagram itself doesn't give us the complete picture. It gives us an overall picture. So see you then in the next session.